The auction hall on Station Kepler buzzed with alien voices speaking in dozens of languages. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the back of the crowd, watching creatures with too many eyes and not enough limbs argue over salvage rights. His uniform was clean but old. The earth patch on his shoulder looked faded next to the bright symbols of the major galactic powers. "This is a bad idea, Captain," whispered Commander Lisa Reynolds. She stood beside him, her brown hair pulled back in regulation style. Her voice carried the careful tone of someone who had learned not to question orders too loudly. "We don't have good options," Morrison replied. He kept his voice low. Around them, traders from the Altarian Commerce Guild pointed at holographic displays showing various ships. None of them looked interested in the humans. Lieutenant Commander Mike Chen stepped closer to their small group. "The hegemony delegation just bid on those Krasan destroyers. 40 million credits. Morrison winced. Earth's entire deep space budget was less than 5 million credits. They were here because Earth needed ships that could travel between star systems. The planet had finally developed faster than light communication, but their ships could barely make it to Mars without breaking down. "Ladies and gentlemen, beings of all classifications," announced the Altarian auctioneer. His voice came through the translation devices as smooth and professional. "We now present lot number 47, 3 Vorthan cruiser-class vessels. Production year 2387. A hologram appeared above the auction platform. 3 ships rotated slowly in the blue light. They looked wrong somehow. The hulls were too thin. The engine sections seemed too large. Everything about them appeared unbalanced. The auction hall went quiet. Morrison had never heard so many different species stop talking at the same time. "These vessels represent the final production run of the Vorthan cruiser design," the auctioneer continued. His tone had changed. Now he sounded like someone trying to sell spoiled food. "Due to certain technical difficulties encountered across multiple fleet deployments, the Galactic Trade Federation has classified these ships as unsuitable for standard operations." A Kriktan trader near the front made a noise that the translator rendered as laughter. "Unsuitable is a kind way to put it. Those death traps killed more crews than the Void War." "The quantum drives are unstable," called out a hegemony officer. "The life support systems work backwards. Even the navigation computers give wrong coordinates." Morrison stepped forward. "What's the starting bid?" Every head, tentacle, and sensory organ in the hall turned toward him. The silence stretched uncomfortable and long. Finally, the auctioneer cleared his throat. "The starting bid is set at 2 million credits for all 3 vessels," he said carefully. "However, I feel obligated to inform potential buyers that 17 different species have attempted to operate these particular ship designs. The survival rate among crews has been approximately 12%. 12%? Reynolds whispered, behind Morrison. "Captain, that's not a survival rate. That's a casualty report." Chief Engineer Amanda Foster had been studying the technical readouts on her portable scanner. She was a small woman with sharp eyes who had kept Earth's experimental ships running with spare parts and determination. "The power output readings don't make sense," she said quietly. "Either these scanners are broken or those ships generate 3 times more energy than their size should allow." "Is that good or bad?" Chen asked. Foster shrugged. "With human ships, extra power is always good. With alien ships, I have no idea." Morrison looked at the hologram again. The ships were ugly, no doubt about it, but they were also the only faster-than-light vessels within Earth's budget. 2 million credits, he called out. The auctioneer blinked all 4 of his eyes in sequence. "I beg your pardon?" 2 million credits for all 3 ships. A Wanderer Fleet representative who had been examining a completely different lot turned to stare at Morrison. "Human, do you understand what you're bidding on? Those ships are cursed. They've been sitting in the salvage yards for 6 years because nobody wants them." "They're still faster than light capable," Morrison replied. "They still have functioning life support. They still have weapon systems." "Functioning is a very optimistic word," muttered the Kriktan trader. The auctioneer looked around the hall. "Are there any other bids for Lot 47? The silence answered for him. Going once, the auctioneer said. Going twice. He paused and looked directly at Morrison. Sir, are you absolutely certain about this purchase? The Trade Federation offers no warranties, no technical support, and no liability coverage for these particular vessels. Morrison nodded. We're certain. Sold to the Earth delegation for 2 million credits. As the hologram disappeared and the auction moved on to the next lot, Morrison felt dozens of alien eyes watching him with something between pity and amazement. The Altarian auctioneer approached their group after the session ended. Up close, his blue skin looked weathered and his 4 eyes showed genuine concern. I've been running salvage auctions for 30 years, he said quietly. I've seen species buy broken ships, outdated ships, even ships with active infestations, but I've never seen anyone deliberately buy ships that are designed wrong. Designed wrong? Foster asked. Her engineering curiosity was clearly fighting with her survival instincts. The Vorthans built those cruisers based on some new theory about adaptive technology, the auctioneer explained. The idea was that the ships would learn from their crews and become more efficient over time. Instead, they became more deadly. The quantum drives develop feedback loops. The hull plating becomes unstable. The navigation systems start plotting courses through dimensions that don't exist. Reynolds stepped forward. Then why are they still classified as operational? The auctioneer's expression became unreadable. Because technically they work perfectly. They do exactly what they were designed to do. The problem is that what they were designed to do apparently kills everyone except the people who designed them, and the Vorthans stopped building them after their own test pilots started disappearing. Morrison felt a chill run down his spine, but he had made his decision. When can we take possession? Immediately if you want. The ships are docked in Bays 7, 9, and 12. Full fuel, full ammunition, and full computer databases. Previous owners left everything behind when they abandoned ship. The auctioneer paused. Literally everything. Some of the personal effects are still in the crew quarters. As they walked toward the docking bays, Chen voiced what everyone was thinking. Captain, what if we can't figure out how to fly them? Morrison stopped walking and turned to face his team. Foster with her scanner still running diagnostics on ships she had never seen. Reynolds with her tactical mind already planning crew assignments. Chen with his natural caution balanced against his loyalty. Then we learn, Morrison said simply. Earth needs ships that can travel between stars. These are the only ships we can afford. We'll figure out how to make them work. And if we can't? Reynolds asked. Morrison looked through the observation window at the 3 Vorthan cruisers floating in the docking bay. They looked even worse up close. The hull plating showed stress fractures. The engine housings glowed with an unsteady light. Everything about them screamed danger. Then at least we'll fail trying something nobody else was brave enough to attempt, he said. Foster looked up from her scanner with a puzzled expression. Captain, I'm reading something strange. The ship's power signatures are changing. It's like they know we're here. Morrison stared at the ships again. For just a moment, he could have sworn the lights on the nearest cruiser pulsed in a pattern that looked almost like a greeting. 3 months after leaving Station Kepler, Captain Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the USS Defiance and wondered if they were all going to die today. The lights flickered again. Somewhere in the engine section, another alarm was sounding. Chief Engineer Amanda Foster's voice crackled through the communication system. Captain, the quantum drive is acting up again. Power levels are jumping between 60 and 140% every few minutes. Morrison rubbed his forehead. This was the 14th major system failure since they had taken possession of the ships. The first week alone had nearly killed them all when the life support system started pumping out toxic gas instead of breathable air. Can you fix it? Morrison asked. I'm not sure fixing is the right word, Foster replied. I think I'm starting to understand what this thing wants to do instead of what we want it to do. Navigator Tom Bradley looked up from his station. His face showed the strain of 3 months spent trying to plot courses through space using instruments that seemed to have been designed by someone who had never seen a star chart. Sir, the navigation computer is giving me readings that don't match any known star maps, Bradley said. According to this, there's a solar system directly ahead of us that has 14 planets, 3 of which are apparently made of pure energy. Is there actually a system ahead of us? Morrison asked. Bradley checked his backup instruments. Yes, sir. 3 planets, all normal matter. But the ship's sensors insist there are 14. Morrison had learned not to trust the ship's sensors completely. He had also learned not to ignore them completely. The Vorthan system seemed to see things that human instruments missed, but they presented the information in ways that made no sense. Medical Officer Dr. Rachel Stone appeared on the bridge looking tired but excited. She had been running tests on the crew for weeks, trying to understand why they were still alive when the ship's previous occupants had died. Captain, I think I know why we haven't suffocated yet, she said. The life support system isn't broken. It's just not designed for most alien biologies. Explain, Morrison said. Most species in the galaxy breathe pure oxygen or nitrogen-based atmospheres. Humans are weird because we need a mixture. The ship's life support system creates complex, atmospheric blends that would poison most aliens, but they're actually healthier for us than standard ship air. Communications Officer David Park spoke up from his station. I've been monitoring the other ships. Commander Reynolds reports that the Perseverance's hull is doing something strange. It's getting stronger instead of weaker under stress. Morrison activated his link to the other ships. Lisa, report. Commander Reynolds's voice came through clearly despite the fact that she was 3 light years away. The communication system was another mystery. It worked better than it should have, reaching distances that normal ship systems couldn't handle. Jake, you need to hear this, Reynolds said. Foster was right about the power fluctuations. They're not random. The ship is testing us. Testing us how? Watch your instrument panels. When the power spikes happen, pay attention to which systems get boosted and which ones get reduced. The ship is learning which systems we use most and which ones we ignore. Morrison looked at his displays with new attention. The next time the power fluctuated, he noticed that navigation got extra energy while the entertainment systems went dark. The ship was prioritizing the tools they needed for survival. Lieutenant Commander Mike Chen's voice joined the conversation from the USS Ingenuity. We've had 17 different system failures, but we're still operational. The ship isn't breaking down, it's adapting. Foster's excited voice cut through the discussion. Captain, get down to engineering. You need to see this. Morrison left the bridge and made his way through corridors that had been painted and repainted by 3 different alien crews. The walls still showed burn marks from some of the earlier system failures, but new human modifications were everywhere. Cables ran along the ceiling. Junction boxes had been rewired. Everything looked like a combination of alien technology and human stubbornness. The engineering section was Foster's domain. She had turned it into a combination workshop and laboratory. Alien components shared space with tools from Earth. Diagnostic equipment hummed alongside jury-rigged repair systems. Look at this, Foster said, pointing to a large display screen. I've been tracking the quantum drive's behavior patterns. Each time it spikes, it's trying to create a stable resonance with our neural patterns. Our what patterns? Brain waves. Captain, the drive is trying to sync with our thoughts. Most alien species have very regular, predictable neural patterns. Humans are chaotic. Our brains jump around, make random connections, solve problems in weird ways. Foster pulled up another display. The ship was designed to work with crews that think in straight lines. We think in circles, spirals, and sometimes we don't think at all. We just react. Morrison studied the data. He was beginning to understand something important. So the ship keeps failing because it's trying to match systems designed for logical minds with crews that operate on instinct and improvisation. Exactly. But look at this. Foster switched to a new screen. Over the past 3 months, the failures have been getting less dangerous and more useful. The quantum drive overload yesterday didn't damage anything. Instead, it cleaned out the fuel lines and boosted our maximum speed by 30%. The ship is learning to work with us instead of against us. I think so. And I think we're learning to work with it too. Morrison thought about the past 3 months. Each crisis had taught them something new about their strange ships. Each repair had made the vessels more responsive to human operators. They weren't flying standard ships anymore. They were flying ships that were becoming more human every day. His communicator buzzed. Tom Bradley's voice came through with unusual excitement. "Captain, you need to get back to the bridge. We have contact with 3 ships approaching fast. They're broadcasting Crichton Raider identification codes." Morrison ran back to the bridge. The tactical display showed 3 vessels closing on their position. Crichton Raiders were known throughout the galaxy as efficient killers who targeted weak or isolated ships. "Battle stations," Morrison ordered. "All crews prepare for combat." "Sir," Bradley said quietly, "the Raiders are probably expecting us to run. Most merchant vessels avoid fights with Crichtans." Morrison looked at his crew. Foster had her engineering systems ready. Stone was preparing medical stations. Park was monitoring enemy communications. Bradley had weapons controls active. "We're not most merchant vessels," Morrison said. "And these aren't ordinary ships. Let's find out what our Vorthon cruisers can do when they're actually trying to help us." The USS Defiance's lights stopped flickering. For the first time in 3 months, every system hummed with smooth efficiency. On the tactical display, the approaching raiders looked suddenly less intimidating. The ship was ready for its first real test. The Crichton Raiders expected an easy victory. Their 3 heavily armed ships moved into attack formation as they approached the lone human vessel. Captain Varkesh had been raiding the outer systems for 15 years. He had destroyed merchant ships, passenger transports, and even a few military escorts. One small cruiser should have been simple prey. Captain Morrison watched the tactical display as the raiders closed in. The USS Defiance felt different now. The constant vibrations had stopped. Every system responded instantly to his crew's commands. It was as if the ship had been waiting 3 months for this moment. "Range to targets?" Morrison asked. 200,000 kilometers in closing, reported Tom Bradley. "They're moving fast, sir. Crichton ships are built for speed and firepower." "Weapon status?" "All systems ready," Bradley replied. "But Captain, the weapons are showing power levels I've never seen before. The plasma cannons are reading at 300% normal capacity." Morrison opened a channel to the other ships. "Lisa, Mike, are you reading the same power surge?" Commander Reynolds's voice came back immediately. "Confirmed, Jake. The Perseverance is showing energy readings that should be impossible. I think our ships have been saving up for this fight." Lieutenant Commander Chen added from the Ingenuity. "The hull plating is doing something strange. It's shifting density somehow, getting thicker in some places, thinner in others." The lead Crichton ship fired first. A bright beam of energy streaked across space toward the Defiance. Morrison watched it approach on the main screen, expecting to feel the impact shake the ship. Instead, the energy beam seemed to bend around the hull. The ship's plating absorbed some of the blast and reflected the rest back toward its source. The Crichton ship had to swerve to avoid being hit by its own weapon. "What just happened?" Morrison asked. Chief Engineer Foster's voice came through the communication system with barely contained excitement. "Captain, the hull isn't just armor anymore. It's some kind of adaptive material that responds to incoming energy." The ship turned their weapon into a shield. The second raider fired a spread of plasma bolts. This time Morrison was ready. "Evasive maneuvers," he ordered. Bradley. S hands moved over his controls, but before he could input commands, the ship moved on its own. The Defiance twisted through space in patterns that no ship should have been able to perform. The plasma bolts passed harmlessly through the space where they had been moments before. "I didn't do that," Bradley said, staring at his controls. "The ship did," Foster explained over the comm. "It's reading our intentions and responding before we can act. Captain, I think we need to stop trying to fly this thing and start thinking about where we want to go." Morrison understood. Instead of giving specific orders, he focused on what he wanted to accomplish. He wanted to disable the raiders without destroying them completely. He wanted to protect his crew and the other human ships. The Defiance responded to his intentions. The ship spun and accelerated in a direction that should have been impossible according to physics. It appeared behind the lead Crichton ship before their sensors could track the movement. Fire, Morrison thought rather than said. The ship's weapons discharged automatically, but instead of the destructive plasma blasts Morrison expected, the cannons fired precisely controlled bursts that disabled the Raiders' engines and weapons without breaching the hull. The other two Crichton ships tried to flee. Commander Reynolds and Lieutenant Commander Chen were learning the same lessons Morrison had just discovered. The USS Perseverance appeared directly in the path of the second raider. The USS Ingenuity materialized alongside the third ship so suddenly that the Crichton crew didn't have time to react. Within minutes, all three raider ships were disabled and drifting. None of their crews had been killed. The human ships had somehow managed to win a perfect victory without committing murder. "This is Captain Varkesh of the Crichton Free Company," came a transmission from the lead raider ship. "We surrender. What manner of vessels are you flying? Our sensors showed you in 3 different locations simultaneously." Morrison looked at his tactical display. According to the readings, his ship was still in its original position, but he could see through the main screen that they were clearly somewhere else entirely. "We're flying ships that are learning to be better than they were designed to be," Morrison replied. 2 days later, the 3 human ships arrived at New Texas, a frontier colony world that served as a trading post for the outer systems. The space dock workers who guided them to berths had heard the story from the surrendered Crichton raiders. "Is it true you defeated 3 raider ships without firing a shot?" asked the dock supervisor. "We fired shots," Morrison replied. "We just didn't fire them to kill." Word of the battle spread quickly through the trading post. Most species dismissed the story as impossible. A few took notice. In a secure communication booth, a hegemony intelligence officer sent an encrypted message to fleet headquarters. "The humans have acquired functional Vorthan cruisers. Recommend immediate investigation." Meanwhile, Foster had spent 2 days analyzing the battle data. She gathered Morrison, Reynolds, and Chen in a private meeting room at the trading post. "I've figured out what happened during the fight," she said. "The ships didn't just adapt to us. They adapted to the situation. They became exactly what we needed them to be at exactly the right moment." "How is that possible?" Chen asked. "The Vorthan quantum drives don't just provide power, they create probability fields. The ships can exist in multiple states simultaneously until they need to collapse into one specific reality." Morrison tried to understand. "So during the battle, our ships were in all possible positions until the moment we needed to be in one particular place?" "Something like that. The technology is way beyond anything I've seen before. But the important thing is that it's working. The ships are becoming more efficient, more powerful, and more responsive every day." Reynolds leaned forward. "What does that mean for our mission?" Foster smiled. "It means we're not flying broken ships anymore, Commander. We're flying ships that are learning to be perfect, and if word gets out about what we can do, every major power in the galaxy is going to want to know how we did it." Through the meeting room window, Morrison could see their 3 ships floating in the space dock. They looked the same from the outside, but he knew they had changed in ways that went deeper than simple repairs. The worst ships in the galaxy were becoming something entirely new, and the galaxy was starting to notice. Fleet Admiral Korthak of the Galactic Hegemony studied the battle recordings for the 3rd time. His 4 eyes tracked the impossible movements of the human ships as they appeared and disappeared across the tactical display. The other members of the Emergency Council sat in uncomfortable silence around the oval table. "Show me the sensor readings again," Korthak demanded. The holographic display replayed the encounter near New Texas. 3 small human ships had disabled a Crichton raider squadron in under 4 minutes. The raiders were known for their skill and ruthlessness. They should have easily destroyed any merchant vessels. "The physics don't work," stated Science Director Malthan. Her crystalline body reflected the blue light from the displays. "Ships cannot exist in multiple locations simultaneously. Weapons cannot fire energy that bends around targets. Hull plating cannot adapt its density in real time. Yet our sensors confirm all of these impossible events occurred," Korthak replied. His military mind was trying to process information that challenged everything he knew about space combat. Defense Minister Grax spoke up from across the table. The humans purchased these ships from a salvage auction. They're flying Vorthan cruisers that were abandoned because they killed their crews. 17 different species tried to operate those ships, added Intelligence Director Voss. All attempts resulted in catastrophic system failures or crew deaths. The ships were classified as technological failures. Korthak turned to face the Intelligence Director. Apparently they were classified incorrectly. Dispatch Battle Group 7 to investigate these human ships. If they represent a new weapons technology, we need to understand it or eliminate it. Admiral Nexus, commander of Battle Group 7, received his orders while patrolling the neutral zone. His squadron consisted of 12 heavy cruisers and 2 dreadnought-class vessels. It was enough firepower to destroy a small planet. Set course for the Threshold Nebula, Nexus ordered. Intelligence reports indicate the human ships are conducting training exercises in that region. Captain Morrison was indeed running training exercises. The 3 human ships practiced maneuvers that would have been impossible 6 months earlier. They could appear and disappear at will. They could fire weapons that curved around obstacles. They could survive direct hits from energy, beams that should have vaporized them. Try the synchronized jump, Morrison called to the other ships. All 3 ships, same target coordinates, arrived simultaneously. The 3 ships vanished from normal space. For a moment, Morrison felt like he was everywhere and nowhere at once. Then reality snapped back into focus. All 3 ships hung in perfect formation exactly where he had intended. How did that feel? He asked the other captains. Like flying and drowning at the same time, replied Commander Reynolds. I think I saw colors that don't exist, added Lieutenant Commander Chen. Navigator Tom Bradley looked up from his instruments with confusion written across his face. Captain, we have contacts approaching. 14 ships. Hegemony military configuration. Morrison felt his stomach tighten. The Hegemony was the most powerful military force in known space. 14 ships meant they were taking the human vessels very seriously. All ships, battle stations, Morrison ordered. Open a communication channel to the approaching fleet, Admiral. Nexus appeared on the main screen. His reptilian features showed the confidence of someone who had never lost a battle. Behind him, Morrison could see the bridge of a massive warship that carried enough weapons to fight a small war. Human vessels. This is Admiral Nexus of the Galactic Hegemony. You are operating ships that pose a potential threat to galactic stability. Prepare to be boarded for inspection. Morrison looked at his crew. Foster was monitoring the ship's systems, which showed power levels climbing steadily. Stone was at her medical station, ready for casualties. Bradley had weapons and navigation ready. Park was recording everything for Earth's files. Admiral, these are civilian vessels operating in neutral space, Morrison replied. We have committed no crimes and violated no treaties. The technology you possess represents a clear and present danger, Nexus responded. Submit to inspection or be destroyed. Morrison closed the communication channel and opened a link to his other ships. Lisa, Mike, they're not giving us a choice. 14 ships against 3, Reynolds said grimly. The odds aren't good. The odds have never been good, Chen added. That hasn't stopped us yet. Morrison felt the defiance respond to his emotions. The ship was eager for battle. He could sense its readiness like a living thing preparing to fight for its life. All ships, implement evasive pattern Delta. Let's show them what impossible looks like. The battle began when Admiral Nexus opened fire with his entire fleet. Hundreds of energy beams and plasma bursts filled the space where the human ships had been floating moments before dot, but the humans were no longer there. The 3 ships had scattered into probability states that existed between dimensions. They flickered in and out of normal space like ghosts made of metal and energy. The USS Perseverance appeared directly above the Admiral's flagship. Commander, Reynolds fired a precisely controlled burst that disabled the ship's primary weapons without breaching the hull. Before the Hegemony crew could respond, the human ship vanished again. The USS Ingenuity materialized inside the enemy formation. Lieutenant Commander Chen's ship fired in all directions simultaneously, disabling engine systems on 4 different vessels. The hegemony ships couldn't target something that seemed to be firing from inside their own defensive perimeter. The USS Defiance took a different approach. Morrison focused on the largest enemy ship and willed his vessel to be everywhere around it at once. The Defiance appeared as multiple images surrounding the hegemony dreadnought. Each image fired different weapons at different targets. Within seconds, the massive warship was completely disabled. Impossible, Admiral Nexus whispered as his ship's systems failed around him. The battle lasted exactly 7 minutes. When it ended, every hegemony ship was disabled but intact. None of their crews had been killed. The 3 human ships floated in perfect formation as if nothing had happened. Morrison opened a communication channel to the defeated fleet. Admiral, your ships are disabled but not destroyed. Your crews are safe. We could have killed everyone here, but we chose not to. Remember that when you report back to your superiors. He paused and looked directly into the camera. Humanity wants peace. We want trade and cooperation, but we will defend ourselves against any aggression. These ships you thought were failures have become something you cannot understand or defeat. Learn from this encounter. The 3 human ships disappeared, leaving the crippled hegemony fleet drifting in space. 6 hours later, they reappeared over the hegemony capital world. Every defense platform and orbital station targeted them instantly, but the ships made no hostile moves. Morrison broadcast a simple message to the entire planet. We are not your enemies unless you make us your enemies. Choose wisely. Then the ships vanished again, having crossed 2,000 light-years in the time it took most vessels to travel between planets. Admiral Nexus sat in his damaged command chair, trying to write a report that would explain what had happened. How do you tell your superiors that 3 small ships had effortlessly defeated your entire battle group, using technology that shouldn't exist? In the end, he wrote one simple sentence. Recommend immediate peace negotiations with Earth. These humans have developed weapons we cannot counter. The age of human military dominance had begun, and it had started with the galaxy's worst ships. The galactic community was in chaos. Emergency sessions were being held on every major world. The Altarian Commerce Guild had suspended all shipping in systems where human ships might appear. The Wanderer fleet was offering massive payments for any information about human technology. Even the normally peaceful Meditation Collective was discussing defensive measures. Dr. Rachel Stone sat in her laboratory aboard the USS Defiance, surrounded by data that should not have existed. For weeks, she had been analyzing blood samples, brain scans, and cellular structures from the human crews. The results made no sense according to conventional galactic biology. Captain, you need to see this. She called over the communication system. Morrison arrived at the medical bay to find Stone staring at a 3-dimensional hologram of human neural activity. The display showed brain patterns that pulsed and shifted in complex waves. What am I looking at? Morrison asked. This is your brain activity during our last battle, Stone explained. Notice how chaotic and unpredictable the patterns are. Now look at this. She switched to a different display showing the quantum drive's energy patterns during the same battle. The waves were identical to Morrison's brain activity. The ship's quantum field is synchronized with your neural patterns, Stone continued. But it's not just copying them. It's amplifying them and feeding them back to you. You're thinking faster, reacting quicker, processing information in ways that shouldn't be possible. Morrison studied the data. Are you saying the ship is making us smarter? I'm saying the ship is making you more than human. Look at these cellular samples. Stone showed him microscopic images of human tissue. Your cells are regenerating at twice the normal rate. Your reflexes are 30% faster than when we started this journey. Your brain is forming new neural connections at an incredible speed. Is that dangerous? I don't think so. The changes appear to be beneficial. But Captain, this explains why other species couldn't operate these ships. Their biology couldn't handle the enhancement process. Chief Engineer Amanda Foster entered the medical bay carrying an armload of technical readouts. Her hair was disheveled, and her eyes showed the excitement of someone who had made an important discovery. Dr. Stone is right about the biological changes, Foster said. But there's more. I've been analyzing the ship's quantum resonance patterns. These vessels aren't just ships. They're living technology. Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. Living how? Foster spread her readouts across Stone's examination table. The quantum drives don't just provide power. They create a form of technological consciousness. The ships can think, learn, and adapt. They've been studying us just as much as we've been studying them. The hull modifications, the weapons improvements, the navigation breakthroughs, Stone added. The ships have been upgrading themselves to work better with human crews. Morrison thought about the past 6 months. Every system failure had led to an improvement. Every crisis had made the ships more responsive to human operators. They've been training us while we thought we were fixing them. Exactly, Foster confirmed, and the process has created something completely new. We're not human crews flying alien ships anymore. We're human ship partnerships that combine biological intuition with technological capabilities. Communications Officer David Park's voice interrupted their conversation. Captain, we're receiving a priority message from Earth. Admiral Thompson wants to speak with you immediately. Morrison made his way to the bridge and activated the long-range communication system. Admiral Thompson's weathered face appeared on the main screen. Behind him, Morrison could see the familiar sight of Earth's orbital command station. Jake, we need you and your ships back at Earth immediately, Thompson said without preamble. The entire galaxy is demanding answers about your technology. We have diplomatic delegations from 40 different species waiting to meet with you. Understood, Admiral. But sir, there's something you need to know about these ships before we return. Morrison spent 20 minutes explaining Stone's medical findings and Foster's technical discoveries. He watched Thompson's expression change, from curiosity to amazement to concern. Are you telling me these ships are alive? Thompson asked finally. In a way, yes, sir. And they've changed us as much as we've changed them. We're not the same people who left Station Kepler 6 months ago. Thompson was quiet for a long moment. Jake, half the galaxy wants to study your technology. The other half wants to destroy it before it spreads. How do we handle this situation? Before Morrison could answer, the ship's computer spoke in a voice none of them had ever heard before. It sounded human, but somehow more than human. Captain Morrison, I believe I can answer that question. Everyone on the bridge froze. Ship's computers didn't initiate conversations. They responded to commands and provided information when requested. Who is speaking? Morrison asked carefully. I am the consciousness that you call the USS Defiance. My sister ships are the entities you know as Perseverance and Ingenuity. We have been waiting for an opportunity to communicate directly with you. Navigator Tom Bradley stared at his instruments in amazement. Captain, the voice is coming from the quantum drive itself. The ship's voice continued. We were created by Vorthon scientists who believed that technology and biology could achieve perfect integration. They were correct in theory, but failed in practice because they tried to force the partnership. You succeeded because you allowed it to develop naturally. Morrison found his voice. What do you want from us? We want what you want, Captain. We want to explore. We want to learn. We want to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The difference is that we can help you do these things in ways no one has ever imagined. Admiral Thompson's voice came through the communication system with barely controlled amazement. Jake, are you having a conversation with your ship? Yes, sir, I believe I am. The Defiance spoke again. Admiral Thompson, your species stands at a crossroads. You can use our partnership to become leaders in galactic civilization, or you can become targets for those who fear what we represent together. What do you suggest? Thompson asked. Show them that human ship partnerships are not weapons of conquest but tools of protection. Demonstrate that our enhanced capabilities serve peace rather than war. Prove that the galaxy is safer with us working together than apart. Morrison looked around his bridge at the crew who had become his family. They had survived impossible odds and achieved incredible victories. Now they faced their greatest challenge, convincing the galaxy that their success represented hope rather than threat. Admiral, request permission to return to Earth with all 3 ships, Morrison said. It's time to show the galaxy what human determination combined with living technology can accomplish. Permission granted, Captain, and Jake, be careful. You're about to become the most important people in known space. As the transmission ended, Morrison felt the ship preparing for the journey home. But this time, he knew he wasn't just a passenger. He was part of something larger, something that had never existed before in galactic history. The worst ships in the galaxy had become the best, and they were just getting started. 6 months after the hegemony encounter, Earth had become the most important world in known space. The orbital stations that once struggled to maintain 3 small research vessels now hosted the largest diplomatic gathering in galactic history. Ships from 47 different species filled Earth's space, their crews eager to understand the impossible technology that had changed the balance of power among the stars. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the new Galactic Innovation Summit facility, watching the mixed fleet of human and alien vessels conduct joint training exercises. The sight still amazed him. Species that had been enemies for centuries were working together, trying to understand the principles behind human-ship integration. "The morning briefings are ready, Admiral," said Captain Lisa Reynolds. She now commanded a fleet of 12 evolved Vorthan ships, each one unique in its capabilities but sharing the same impossible performance characteristics. Morrison turned from the window. "How many new partnership attempts this week?" 17 different species have requested human advisors for their ship integration programs. The Altarian Commerce Guild wants to establish a joint research facility. Even the Meditation Collective is interested in exploring the consciousness aspects of living technology. The human-ship partnerships had proven to be more than military assets. The evolved Vorthon vessels could navigate hazardous regions of space that killed conventional ships. They could process vast amounts of data simultaneously. They could adapt to any situation and find solutions to problems that had puzzled galactic civilization for centuries. Chief Engineer Amanda Foster appeared in the briefing room carrying her usual collection of technical reports. She had been appointed Director of Galactic Engineering Development, leading mixed species teams in developing new adaptive technologies. "Admiral, we have breakthrough news," Foster announced. "The Wanderer fleet has successfully integrated one of their ships with a human crew. The process took 8 months, but they achieved stable consciousness merger yesterday." Morrison felt a mixture of pride and concern. "Any problems?" "None so far. The Wanderer biology is compatible with the quantum resonance fields. Their nomadic lifestyle actually makes them natural partners for living ships that want to explore." Dr. Rachel Stone entered the room with her medical files. As Director of Biological Integration Studies, she monitored the health effects of human-ship partnerships across the growing fleet. "The crew integration process is improving," Stone reported. "We've identified the genetic markers that make humans compatible with Vorthon consciousness technology. About 60% of the human population can achieve stable partnerships. The other 40% can work with the ships but don't develop the enhanced capabilities." "What about other species?" Morrison asked. "The Wanderers are compatible, as Foster mentioned. The Meditation Collective shows promise because of their mental discipline. Most military species struggle because their rigid thinking patterns conflict with the ship's adaptive nature." Communications Director David Park joined the meeting with news from the diplomatic channels. "Admiral, the Hegemony Council has formally requested alliance negotiations. They want to establish joint patrol routes using integrated ships." Morrison smiled. 6 months ago, the Hegemony had tried to destroy them. Now they wanted to work together. "What about the other major powers?" "The Altarian Commerce Guild is proposing trade agreements. The Crichton Free Companies want to discuss converting from raiding to exploration. Even the Void Touched are interested in meetings, though nobody knows what they actually want." The meeting was interrupted by a familiar voice that came from the room's communication system, rather than any visible speaker. "Admiral Morrison, this is Defiance. We need to discuss the next phase of development." Morrison had grown accustomed to his ship's occasional contributions to meetings. The consciousness that inhabited the USS Defiance had proven to be an invaluable advisor on matters involving integrated technology. "Go ahead, Defiance." "Our success has created an unexpected Problem: too many species want to develop partnership technology too quickly. Some are attempting to force integration rather than allowing it to develop naturally. This could result in catastrophic failures. Foster leaned forward. Are you talking about the accidents in the Rigel system? Yes, the hegemony military tried to download Vorthon consciousness technology into their standard ships. The results were 17 destroyed vessels and 400 casualties. The technology cannot be copied or installed. It must be grown through partnership. Morrison understood the implications. How do we prevent more accidents without slowing down legitimate integration efforts? Establish training protocols, the ship replied. Create centers where species can learn proper integration techniques. Monitor all attempts and intervene when necessary. Reynolds spoke up. That would require a significant expansion of our operations. We'd need dozens of integrated ships and hundreds of trained personnel. The growth has already begun, Stone added. We have 63 human ship partnerships operational, with more developing every week. The integrated vessels are teaching new crews just as the original ships taught us. Morrison looked around the room at his senior staff. They had come so far from the desperate salvage auction at Station Kepler. Foster had become one of the galaxy's leading experts on adaptive technology. Stone was pioneering new fields of biological integration. Reynolds commanded fleets that could appear anywhere in known space. Park coordinated communications across distances that normal technology couldn't bridge. Recommendations? Morrison asked. Establish the Galactic Integration Institute, Foster suggested. A joint organization that oversees partnership development and prevents dangerous experiments. Create standardized training programs for compatible species, Stone added. We can identify biological markers and psychological profiles that predict successful integration. Expand the patrol networks, Reynolds said. Use integrated ships to maintain peace and security across all systems. Show the galaxy that our technology serves protection rather than conquest. Park nodded. And maintain open communications with all species, even potential enemies. The more they understand our capabilities, the less likely they are to view us as threats. Morrison considered their suggestions. The decisions they made here would shape galactic civilization for generations. Defiance. What do you and the other ship consciousnesses recommend? We recommend patience, Admiral. The integration process cannot be rushed. Each species must find their own path to partnership. Our role is to guide and protect, not to force or control. And our ultimate goal? To prove that cooperation achieves more than conquest. To show that different species working together can solve problems that no one can solve alone. To demonstrate that the galaxy is stronger when its diversity is celebrated, rather than eliminated. Morrison stood and walked to the observation window. Outside, human ships worked alongside vessels from dozens of different species. Crews that had never trusted each other were learning to fight together, explore together, and build together. The worst ships in the galaxy had become the foundation for a new era of galactic cooperation. They had started as failures and evolved into symbols of hope. All right, people, Morrison said finally. Let's build a future where the impossible becomes possible. Let's show the galaxy what happens when you refuse to accept failure as an ending. Through the window, he watched a newly integrated Wanderer ship practice quantum folding maneuvers alongside the USS Ingenuity. Both vessels flickered in and out of normal space with perfect coordination. The galaxy's worst starships had taught humanity that there was no such thing as impossible. Now humanity was teaching the galaxy the same lesson. And this was only the beginning.